Greetings, everyone. It is the Monday edition of Istanbul's Everyday English, and I am your host, Natalie. This week, we are going to talk about something very important. It might not seem important or maybe interesting, but I promise that if you watch or listen to this week's podcast about mindset, the mindset needed to learn English, you will learn English more easily, or you will elevate English more easily. I am sure of this. I have met thousands of students. I have taught thousands of lessons. And what I know about learners who go on to speak very good English and those who simply give up learning English is that 99% of the difference between the two learners is mindset. All right, let's talk about it. The growth mindset is something you might have already heard about applied to different areas of life. And the concept comes from a psychologist named Dr. Carol Dweck from Stanford University. Her research shows that people who believe their abilities can improve, actually learn faster and achieve more. Now, what that means is if you say, I can learn English and I will learn English, you will. If you say, I'm not good at English, I don't know how to speak English, I'm not going to learn how to speak English, then you will have a very difficult time learning English. This is called fixed mindset. A fixed mindset stays where it is. It stays not being able to speak English. It stays not being good at English. It stays not speaking English. And that is just a shame because we all can learn to speak English. Yes, some people have more of a natural ability when it comes to learning languages. This is true. However, I've never met someone who, when they put hard work, time, and energy into something, did not achieve it. That is a fact. History is full of examples. So growth mindset says, I failed, so I could learn something. Or, I don't understand yet, but I will. I will improve with practice. Fixed mindset, I can't speak English. Growth mindset, I can't speak English yet. Now, failure is a very important part of learning because our brains learn from mistakes. In fact, they encode the information that is related to that mistake better than when they don't make a mistake. In neuroscience, this is called error-based learning. When you make a mistake, your brain adjusts, it shifts, it adapts to learn what the problem is and how to correct it. Then it strengthens those neural pathways. So failure is not bad. Failure is good. I always say failure is your friend. I said that people who have a fixed mindset have a difficult time learning English, but I'm going to go farther than that. People who have a fixed mindset often never learn English. That might sound hard. That might sound harsh. That might sound mean. Switch the video off right now if you don't like it. I don't care. I am not going to lie. I'm going to tell the truth. And sometimes the truth is not what you want to hear. To learn any language, you need to have a growth mindset. You need to stick with it. You need to know you are going to fail. You might not have success for a long time, especially if you're just starting to learn that language. I have personal experience with this. Many years ago, I moved to Japan. I wanted to learn Japanese. I love languages, and I thought if I'm going to live here, I need to learn the language. I went to a bookstore. I bought an English to Japanese book for learning, and I studied it and studied it and studied it. I studied for 3 months. I memorized vocabulary. I studied grammar. I crammed for 3 straight months. And I didn't understand anything. I'm not joking. After 3 months of studying for a couple hours a day, as well as living in the country, listening to people speak Japanese, and watching TV, I couldn't speak. I couldn't understand. I was living in Sendai in northern Japan in the Tohoku region. And I was walking down the street on my day off. It was a Sunday. And I remember all of a sudden I heard an old man say to his wife, "Look at that foreigner. Look at that gaijin." That was me. I was the foreigner. And I understood. And from that moment on, it was like my brain lit up. And all the Japanese that I had studied became like activated. And I started to understand. I started to hear things and know what people were saying. I started to be able to put little sentences together and speak to my students. In 6 months, I understood basic Japanese. I could express myself simply. And I could communicate in 6 months. Now for me, that's not a long time. I think 6 months in a lifetime is actually quick. For other people, they think that's a long time, and I understand. But unfortunately, again, I'm not going to lie to you. If you want to learn English, you need to put the hard work in. You will improve. You will learn, but you have to have the growth mindset. Now, back then, I thought this was amazing, that all of a sudden, after 3 months, I understood. But we know through research that language takes repetition, exposure. It takes emotional engagement. That's another big thing. I wanted to learn Japanese. I wanted to learn the language that was used in the country I was living in. I had an emotional attachment to it because I was alone, except for my employer, which was great, but I wanted to speak to more Japanese people. I wanted to make friends. So I had a big investment, and that made a huge difference. Another thing is I studied consistently. Your brain does need a break. It needs to sleep, and it needs to build those connections. When we sleep, our brain goes through the process of looking through all the information, all the experiences, all the things we came across, and it makes a choice. Is this important information? Is it not important information? If it's important, it encodes it. It gives it a little place in the brain, and then when you need that information again, it finds it for you. If your brain thinks it's not important, it just gets rid of it. Many people I know are learning English because they need to. I've met many people who need to learn English for their job. And actually, they're not interested in learning English. They might have great lives. They might have a wonderful family and hobbies and, a good job. But the fact that they have to learn English, it's not something they want to do. They need to do it. So actually their emotional attachment to English is a negative one. It's a non-attachment. So their brain is actually going, well, you don't care about this. I'll get rid of it. Which makes it harder for them to learn. So you kind of have to spin your learning. You have to say, okay, I'm going to learn English because I need to, but I want to. I can travel with English. I can watch English programs without subtitles. I can teach my children English or my grandchildren. There's lots of positive things to learning English. During the pandemic, I learned Turkish. Now, I was living in Turkey for many years and I knew basic Turkish, but not well. When the pandemic hit, I was very busy working online and raising my daughter and being in a house with her and trying to keep her occupied. However, I decided then and there to learn Turkish because I was looking at so many messages, WhatsApp messages for my job every day. And I was trying to filter through news, Turkish news, every day about the pandemic. I was using the health system. I was learning about different notifications. And this was all in Turkish. So I had a really strong desire and an emotional attachment to learning Turkish. I was a mother. I needed to keep my daughter safe. I needed to be informed. So I started with Duolingo. Now I already knew a lot of Turkish, but I didn't know the structure very well, and I knew that starting from the beginning would really help. At the end of the day, when the pandemic was finished, I had done 150 hours of Duolingo. I combined that with reading WhatsApp messages on my phone for my job, speaking with my colleagues in Turkish. I watched Survivor on Turkish TV, and I did a lot of my daughter's schoolwork with her. I read her books, her little reading books, and that was amazing too, because why? Simple sentences. Go check out my video on simple sentences. That really helped me. And I improved slowly, but I did it. I absolutely did it. Again, I've said my Turkish is not perfect. It's intermediate. But I don't care because every day I'm still learning more and more. I insist on it. I make it happen. In 3 months, you can if you study for a couple hours a day. If you don't have that time, it's going to take you maybe a year, maybe 2 years. But the first thing you have to do before you even start learning, you have to have the growth mindset. You have to believe that you can speak English, that you will speak English, and you have to want to speak English. Students with a fixed mindset, they fail. They stop learning. Or because they believe they can't. Well, if you believe you can't do something, you're not going to do it. Think about anything. You know this is true. Think about all the great football players, for instance. I watched a documentary on David Beckham, and I've watched a documentary about Ronaldo, and I think Messi too. I like football. But one thing I know about all of those football players, top football players, is they practiced constantly. They were outside with their parent or sibling or coach every day. In the summer, I believe it's Beckham talks about how his dad was like, I want you to do this. He taught him the skill and he made it do it over and over and over again. And now we have that famous, bend it like Beckham phrase where he bends or curves the ball into the goal. That took practice. That takes learning that becomes part of you. And language needs to become part of you. I talk about translating why it doesn't work, because it's not part of you. I talked about before where if I'm in boardroom and I hear Natalie teacher nasılsın, I say iyiyim sen nasılsın. I'm not thinking nasılsın, nasıl, how, sin, second, person, singular. I'm not thinking that. I know nasılsın. It's in my brain. It's part of me. That's what you can be like with English. You can just learn, and that English can become part of you, and then you will truly be fluent. My hack for today comes from how I learned Turkish. I was in Turkey. I knew a lot of Turkish, but I wanted to really know Turkish, and I started with the basics. Yes, did I know çorba içer, çorba içerim, çorba iç, çorba içtim? Yeah, I know. But I did it again and again and again. And it became part of me. Now, I did that with Duolingo. There are other programs out there. I'm not getting paid by Duolingo. Please, Duolingo, if you want to pay me to promote your product, go ahead, contact me. I've used Duolingo. I've used it to brush up on my French. I've used it to learn Turkish. I've studied Arabic with it. Italian I'm doing now. My daughter has used it for French and Spanish. I love Duolingo. That's what I have experience with. But I know there's other ones like Memrise, Busuu. I don't have any experience with them. But I do have students who have used those apps and they like them. And that's fine. Rosetta Stone I used back in the day. Great. There's lots of apps. Use what you think is good. But go back to the basics. Go back to hello, how are you? Because the more you repeat the same thing over and over again, the stronger that neural pathway becomes. The stronger that neural pathway becomes, you're not translating, you're not thinking, you're not doing anything. The English is becoming part of you. My action for Monday is change your mindset. You can learn English, you will learn English. You just have to study, and you just have to believe that you will learn English. This week, I intend to help you know how to learn English. Last week, if you look at my videos, they were all about simple sentences. How to speak English, how to take all that vocabulary you know and put it into sentences and actually form a sentence that you can say and be understood and communicate with. This week we're going to talk about how to learn English. And number one, switch to a growth mindset. I can learn English. It is possible for me. I will learn English. I am going to learn English. Tuesday, we're going to talk about the main things besides switching your mindset that will help someone learn English. Wednesday, I'm going to talk more about failure, how failure is your friend, and implicit learning. Implicit learning, so important. On Thursday, I'm going to talk about English culture and why it's so important to know about English culture. One thing that I was talking to my friend I've mentioned before, we were talking about learning Japanese. It's easier to learn a language when you're in that country. Now, obviously, you're surrounded by it. You have opportunity to speak, to hear, to practice. But I would say another thing is you're absorbing the culture. You're observing the culture. My students who have lived in English-speaking countries, they obviously know a lot of English. Now, I know what you're saying. They studied there. They were around English. All the things I just mentioned. But I do believe part of it is they learnt English culture. So we'll talk about that on Thursday. And on Friday, I'm going to tell you all the apps, all the websites, all the tools that I use to teach English, and the ones that you can use yourself that I recommend. They're just my recommendations. Again, there's other ones you can use. I believe these ones will give you the best chance of succeeding. That and changing your mindset to a growth mindset. I hope that was useful for you. Thank you all for joining me again this week. I look forward to this week. I think it's so important. And I'll see you tomorrow on Tuesday's edition of Istanbul's Everyday English, where we're going to talk about a main thing you can do to really get your English learning going. Thank you very much. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, night. Bye.